So I'm going to talk about Regtech. Peter Rudiger is the moderator for the next panel, and he's in the other theater, so I've been instructed to talk slower than I typically do. So I'm going to talk a little slower. Regtech is one of those unsexy things that I kind of like because it can make you lots of money, and people tend not to pay a lot of attention to it. So I'm going to kind of walk through some trends that we're seeing in Regtech, and then bring on some smart people to dig into it a bit more. So banks have spent a lot of money in fines, right? Sort of eye-popping amounts of money has gone into fines, and there's tons of enforcement actions that the SEC has levied on financial institutions, amounting to significant penalties. And so what we're seeing now is kind of this new wave of Regtech. And so we're going to walk you through kind of the first three waves as follows, right? So part one, phase one, manual data capture based on these cyclical timelines. And the weapon of choice then was Microsoft Excel. From there, kind of workflow automation, compliance software to try to establish a consistent workflow. And then you started to see software kind of come up, and here's some of the players there. Then we have kind of continuous monitoring, applying data science to automate the back office. So those are kind of the phases of Regtech that we've seen. And then we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the vendors, and then we see phase four. So we'll get into what this looks like in a bit. So I'd liken what we're seeing in Regtech right now a little bit to what we're seeing in insurance tech probably 18, 24 months ago. So this has become like one of the new hot areas of investment within the fintech landscape. We think media chatter is a great indicator of where the world is going. This is, basically Regtech went from nothing to something very, very quickly and very recently, as you can see here. And when we look at that since 2012, again, significant amounts of money going into almost $4 billion across 503 deals. But I think as a term, the topic has come up a lot more as of late. What we see is, again, opportunities on Regtech span various verticals. There's obviously the financial services play. We have then environment, health, and safety, and then healthcare. So regulatory compliance is obviously not something that is specific to financial services, and you can see some of the diversity of use cases in some of the companies here. And then where you see is kind of the pain points that it addresses. So information cybersecurity obviously is a big one. Tax code compliance, third-party management. Again, lots of different players attacking sort of these different sort of functional and use case needs. I don't know if folks have said it before, but we're going to be setting the presentations out. So you should get them in app as well as via email afterwards. So just to let everybody know. So this is the Regtech market map, right? So we see kind of, again, the diversity here is, I think, something to pay attention to. So you see financial services across kind of the top, but we have sort of at the government level, environment, information security. Bottom right, cannabis regulation, big area, pay attention to that. Reducing manual errors, reducing the risk of regulatory non-compliance, and ultimately cost savings are a lot of the reasons that folks are so interested in Regtech these days. We're going to focus then on, kind of the financial services sort of part of this landscape right now. So, as with lots of things, there's a really big AI element that's coming into the compliance kind of verification side of things. So when we think of sort of the predictive analytics kind of coming to the compliance world, that's sort of the phase four in our view. So actively and proactively identifying risks and predicting risk is where Regtech is going right now. And so when we think about some of the players there, we see some of them, and we'll walk through a couple of the technologies that some of these folks are building, which are, I think, pretty interesting. Ripe for disruption, kind of the overused term of the afternoon probably, but again, big opportunity within the Regtech world, and you see that comment here from Tim at Balderton Capital. So this is on Fido, which we showed you on a couple slides ago. So this is using facial recognition to do identity verification, right? And so again, you sort of have a computer in your pocket now. How do you leverage that to do identity verification? you have, we mentioned this morning Aadhaar, which is the India sort of identity database. So again, leveraging biometric screening to help with building the most comprehensive identity database in the world in India. Again, like we talked about expert automation this morning. So this is an initiative by JP Morgan to do intelligent contract review. And so, for regulatory compliance purposes, what they found was, 360,000 hours was spent by humans. And when we think about sort of, this is not augmentation as much as this is sort of automation of experts, right? And now, with their coin project, they're able to do that in less than a minute. So again, massive sort of efficiencies that are to be gained with some of these RegTech efforts. Conducting real-time review of non-compliance. This is James, a platform for that. I think the key takeaways for incumbents in the room, you can see here are, how do you kind of use technology to reduce some of the chokehold that it may place on your team? How do you figure out what is the right technology to be using, right? This landscape changes. Who's in office will drive regulation, and then how do you know what is going to be legislation that's going to be around for a while? And then how do you bring sort of disparate data sets together on the second piece and draw these behavioral patterns? So how do you bring data in from outside of the enterprise potentially to help with sort of your regulatory and compliance needs?